Last time, we explored the sites and history of St. Helena Island. This time, we sail to Ascension Island and have way too much boat drama.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life.
There are the lights of St. Helena in our rear view on our stern. It is Monday, November the 14th. We checked out and we're ready to leave. We were going to get up tomorrow morning and do it, but we just thought, we're all ready. We might as well get rolling. It puts us into Ascension on a Saturday morning. But that's not the greatest because it's quite possible we can't check in until Monday, but we'll see. But at least we get in the daylight. We left now so we would get in the daylight. John is working on sails and getting things rolling. The stars are out. I don't think you can see me, but the stars are out. The sails are up. I sure wish this would film these stars because they're amazing. Good morning from a very calm and cloudy Atlantic Ocean. It's about 6:30 in the morning and I'm doing my watch. John is asleep. So I thought I'd share with you some chaos that went on a couple of nights ago when we first set out. Of course, I didn't pick up the camera and record any of it, which I think I should have because I think it would be interesting to people and a learning situation for some people. But when you're in the moment, the camera's just not the first thing I think about. So clearly videographer is not my highlighted career, potentially. So I want to introduce you to the Autopilot, which is a really great thing on sailboats. So here you see this, the wheel is turning all on its own. I'm not doing anything to it. So the Autopilot here allows us to set it on a specific heading. So currently we're heading 312 degrees west, northwest. And it will keep the boat, it will keep the wheel turning to that degree. I can change it to move the boat to port or move the boat to starboard just by pushing these buttons. I can turn it off and then I can hand steer when I turn it off. You can see on the chart plotter that it keeps us on this course. So why there's 1 degree off, I don't know, between 312 here and 311 here. Nobody can answer that question. But here's our locked heading. But our course over ground is 18, 19 degrees. And that's because of currents, wind, that will, while the boat may be set to go straight at 311, the currents and the wind may make changes. And this tells us what our current course over ground is. When we get going, we point the boat in the direction we want it to go, and we hit auto, so that the autopilot will take over and will drive the boat and do this wheel motion, because it is very difficult to sit here and hand steer the whole way. The boat's very slow to react to the wheel. You can see how it's moving constantly. And so when there's no position on the horizon, like there's not an island or a tree or something to aim at, you're basically just staring at the compass here. And you're trying to keep the compass in a certain spot, not an exact spot. It moves around because the boat is reacting to the wind, the waves, the current, and the rudders are slow. The boat is slow to respond to the rudders. So to hand steer, you literally have to sit here, focus on that compass and nothing else, and make slow movements back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's extremely tiring, and two people just physically couldn't do it crossing an ocean. So the autopilot is a really big deal. About 30 minutes to an hour outside of St. Helena, alarms from the autopilot started going off. And when the alarms go off, they're loud, which is good, they should be, but then they're stressful. And so it's like, oh no, and you run to the helm or to the autopilot or to the chart plotter we have inside and start reading alarms and, trying to get them to turn off, and then resetting the autopilot, and then a few minutes later having it go off again. So John and I worked at troubleshooting it to figure out what was going on. The alarm that we would get would say, drive stopped. So the autopilot is literally a drive with like a bicycle chain connected to a motor that's connected to rudder sensors, and that's how it knows which direction to steer, and the wheel moves the rudders with that motor and bicycle chain basically. So it said drive stopped, something about the rudder sensor, sensing rudder hasn't moved, so it's stopping the drive in order to save that electric drive. So we got the books, pulled the books out. Of course, they're under the bed. Tear the bed apart, pull the books out, start reading everything we can to troubleshoot. I would notice that drive would stop, but would stop turning this wheel. So we'd watch for the wheel to start turning, and we'd look for any kind of clues on the chart plotter to see if we could tell why it was doing that. We thought maybe the rudder sensor was going bad, so John starts digging through parts, and of course it has every other part known to man but the rudder sensor. We have no internet to really reach out, but we do have the IridiumGo. So I reached out to two people, my brother Stephen and to Vince, the captain who helped us get down here. Vince, he thinks it was a calibration issue. So he said, go in circles, do 3 circles to starboard, 3 circles to port, and then try some figure eights. Try to get that autopilot and the GPS calibrated. So we did that and thought, oh, I think we've got it fixed. So we set it to go, and of course it's the middle of the night. We left St. Helena about 8 p.m. So it's plumb dark, it's middle of the night, which just adds a stress factor. There's nothing out here to run into, but it just adds a stress factor. So it works for like an hour, and then it goes off again. And out we come running, and try to do some figure eights, see if we can't get it back on track. And at that point we decide we're closer to St. Helena, we have a better chance of getting parts shipped in or someone to repair this in St. Helena versus Ascension, where we're heading. Ascension Island has nothing. There's an Air Force Base, U.S. Air Force Base, and a UK Royal Air Force Base. And that's pretty much it. And then 2 small towns. And so there's no mail service, private mail service at least. And so we turn around. and we are going into the waves. We had been making 5, 6, 7 knots leaving St. Helena, but now we've turned around. We're going into the wind, into the waves, into the current, and we're making 1 to 2 knots. So what took us 3 or 4 hours is now going to turn around and take us almost 8 hours to get back to St. Helena. So we do that. We turn around, we go back to St. Helena, and the autopilot works the entire time. Into the waves, into the wind. It never alarms, it never stops. So, at that point, we were not sure what to do. Do we keep going back to St. Helena? Did it really just need calibrating? Is a part going bad? We really didn't know what to do.
So let me give you the rest of the story. We were an hour or so away from St. Helena. It was daylight, we could see the island, and the autopilot had been working the whole time. So we talked about it and decided you can't tell anybody what's wrong, so how are you going to troubleshoot something you can't recreate? And one of the articles that my brother had sent talked about rudder resistance. So we got on and we looked at the rudder resistance, and when we were going into the wind and into the waves, there was a lot more resistance on that rudder than when we were going with the wind and the waves. So we raised the rudder resistance and we turned around, and it's just been working fine ever since. So thank you, Stephen. That's what our problem was, is we didn't have enough rudder resistance on the settings for it to recognize it needed to keep working.
Let me share with you some night watch issues. There's a ship out there. It's night. It's too far off to see. It should be right over this little seamount here. This line is our rum line from St. Helena to Ascension. And this, we've got our spinnaker up and are working with the wind. But there's no boat here located, and our AIS should be showing that. But on predict wind, I don't know if it's focusing. This is us here. And this is that boat. It's a fishing vessel, Discovery, and it keeps going back and forth, back and forth. This shows you the direction it's moving. A while ago it was going that way. So I'm doing my best to avoid it, but it keeps changing directions. And it's frustrating that he's not here. This would be, he really should be showing up here. And I've punched every button and I can't figure out why he's not showing up on here. Finally that guy showed up on AIS.
This is not a sound you want to wake up to. We never did figure out what it was, the solar panels or the inverter, but it hasn't happened again, thankfully.
I don't think I've ever been so grateful to find land. This is our shortest passage.
7:43 in the morning on Sunday morning, November the 20th. Here we are. Here's Ascension. We're just coasting along on the wing on wing. I broke a winch. You see this crack? See, this is gone. We were pulling in our jibs out there. I wrapped it around like I always do. And then you have to manage your sheets so that you get a tight roll on this thing. And so you, as you're starting to winch it in, you watch your sails so you don't over winch it. And somehow, through poor line management, the tail end of this line got wrapped around again, and it was a mess. It was terrible. So John got it pried out. I think the only damage is that broken piece. I don't even know what you call that piece. He says it can be fixed. He says we can use it now. So this relatively easy sail, because the winds are anywhere from 5 to 15 knots. Waves have been under 2 meters the whole time. Really consistent direction. Able to lead Jenny up almost the whole time. So it should have been like the best passage ever, but it came with drama. The first drama of the autopilot, then the drama of the winch, then the heat temperature sensor alarm, and to top it all off, just about an hour ago, I noticed that this wind angle sensor, which I use a lot to help trim sails, is frozen in that direction. And the true wind and apparent wind have not changed. Well, they've changed here. Luckily, this is correct. But that means also that then on the autopilot, it's got that same wind angle sensors, which is right here, is frozen also. Everything else looks like it's working on the autopilot. The compass is turning, except the apparent wind. So that's frozen, and the direction is frozen. So, more troubleshooting to do when we get to Ascension. Do you think we have any hope of the American PX, which is the post exchange on the military base? First of all, allowing us in, and second of all, carrying any marine equipment? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. And if they won't let us in, we're hoping we can make a friend with one of the military guys. And since John's son is in the Air Force, maybe we can make a connection. So, I don't know. We'll see. They're like spotted dolphins or something. Flipper, flipper. So, St. Helena and Ascension Islands were basically born from the same volcanic process, but they look completely different so far. Ascension doesn't have quite the cliffs that St. Helena
mid-Atlantic rift. They are volcanoes that rise over 3,000 meters from the seafloor, and the weight of them actually lowers the seafloor. And I read in the Brandt's travel book that they are not, how do you put it? I should go read it to you actually. The mid-Atlantic rift did not cause these volcanoes. These volcanoes caused the mid-Atlantic rift, which I thought was really interesting. Never heard that before. But the weight of these tall mountains, Ascension, St. Helena, and Tristan da Cunha, have literally pushed the seafloor down, the weight of them. Anyway, I thought that was interesting, and interesting how different that the islands look as you approach. Let's see what the other side has to offer. Look at all the salt here. You can see it on this hatch because it's a different color. It's the same amount that's on the boat, but watch this. Oh, it is kind of damp. So just that little, what, 1 square foot and a half? 1 square foot, whatever that is. Foot and a half, probably 2 square feet maybe. 2 times 2 is 4. I don't know, 4 square feet, whatever the square footage is. But look at that, just from that hatch cover, there's an organic sea salt. Imagine what this whole boat would produce right now. And it was cleaned before we left, so should be clean sea salt. Should we go into business? It has a really fine texture to it. You know how when you buy sea salt in the store that you grind, it's in big giant chunks. This is actually really fine. If it was dry, it would shake more like table salt. But we could have our own brand. Organic sea salt, straight from the sea. Estrela do Mar salt. I don't know what the word for salt is in Portuguese, but in Spanish it's sal. Sal de Estrela do Mar. So all of our Whidbey Island friends will recognize these golf balls. Big giant radomes. That is part of the Navy base. No, I'm sorry, it's an Air Force base. We made it to Ascension Island. There it is behind me. It's kind of confusing to anchor, but port control was so helpful. He really guided us right in. We are just this side of a floating fuel line. There are turtles in the water. It is a huge turtle breeding spot. Green turtles, I believe they are. They start their breeding and their egg laying in December. This is the end of November. I don't know if we might be lucky enough to see any or not, but so far we've seen 3 turtles on the surface, but they're shy. They go down. We have been told not to get in the water because of shark activity, which is too bad, but this is the last place you want to get shark bit. Next time, join us as we meet some Ascension locals and explore the island. Please click the logo to subscribe and smash that bell so you'll be notified when we post new videos.